Welcome to a new episode of Academy of Automation, the one and only podcast made by developers for rising developers just like you, where we talk about how you can pave your path in the tech industry as a software developer. If you want to learn more about how you can succeed in the interviews, how to be a good team player or manage a team, or even develop an automation framework from scratch, go to my website waleeddeeba.com, where you can learn about all of these things in a greater detail. Also, you have the opportunity to subscribe to the newsletter, where you will get notified every single time when there's a new content published. In this special episode, we have Guillaume joining us today, who has done pretty much everything from being a developer to co-founding his own tech company called OctoPerf. So get your notepads ready, because we are going to deep dive in all the lessons that he has learned over the years in his career to make OctoPerf a successful product in the tech industry, and how you can do the same. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into this.
So I've been around doing load testing for the last 10 years, a bit more now, probably 12 years, something like that. Originally, I was a developer. I studied software development, but quickly branched out when my first assignment was on COBOL. So, tried to do something different. And quickly I found the load testing business. I work with LoadRunner, which a lot of people probably heard of in terms of load testing, and worked a couple of years at Neotis, another company. And after a while, I think we were going to talk about it, but after a while, I came up with a bunch of people with whom we founded OctoPerf, and that's pretty much where we are right now.
Nice. How did you get in the tech industry?
I was a video game nerd when I was young, very young. So, I had this computing machine where I wrote programs, games, basically. So, it was just logical to do something around computer science after that. Never been much of a question, actually.
So it was like a very clear path. Okay, that's where I want to get to.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody could have told you that was what I was going to do after. And, yeah.
Amazing. So after you've worked for around 10 years, and then you decided that, let's create a new company, OctoPerf. Can you do that journey, how that came about?
First thing is, I never would have thought I would do this. And the fact is, I am not doing this because we are doing it. I think that's the first thing I should highlight. We are now, OctoPerf is, I think, nine people, if I'm not forgetting anybody. But we started as four people with very different profiles. And basically, we were not satisfied with the way our previous company was doing things. And you know how it is when there's something on the internet you can find on the internet, then just do it. So that's what we tried, and we were lucky and it worked in the end. So
nice. And who were these four people that you initially got together? How did that team go built?
So we were all working. I think most of us work in Paris originally, or some of us, but pretty much we work in different IT companies. We were not really satisfied with working in service companies, so we ended up working for a software vendor. Pretty much all of us. Even from the four founders, we all come from. Well, I can say we all come from Neotis, and that's where we had experience on load testing. We met each other, and we were not very satisfied with the way they wanted to address only big companies, because that's where you have the big money. I get it, but it's also interesting to have an offer that can fit to anybody. So we wanted to have something in between like this, and we met with someone else who was working on the same. Was working with a colleague from Neotis previously, and we had all the knowledge to create a company within our four profiles, because we had backend, someone in charge of backend, someone in charge of our front end, sales guy, and the support guy, myself. So that's how it all started. We were really lucky to meet each other, actually.
Nice. And what were the initial challenges that you have to face as just building a new company from scratch?
That's a very good question. There are a lot of things. The first thing is we ended up doing everything we thought we would never do. That's probably the main takeaway, that you start with ideas, and if you're not able to adapt along the way, you will probably go nowhere. Because when people start using your solution, they want to use it in a way that you probably didn't expect, and which is probably better than what you thought in the first place. So it's kind of this collective, I don't know, collective knowledge. I mean, kind of the amount of people trying a solution, give feedback, and it creates something you didn't anticipate. So really the challenge was to originally present the solution to a lot of people. That's where it was difficult to get started with. And on the other end, there was the technological challenge to find the right technological stack for such a solution. We've been sticking to Elasticsearch since we initially tried it, because it's very, very efficient for ingesting loads of data efficiently. And it's even better since last release. So this is the kind of thing, you try things, and I mean, we were lucky in France that we have a system where you can, take your unemployment fund and live on it for 2 years while you create your company. So thanks to that, we were able to, try something. We tried with an Apache solution initially to start the machine. It didn't work, dropped it, started something else. We tried Rancher for a while, Rancher to start Docker containers. Then we figured Rancher is doing something great, but it's too complex for us. So we ended up developing it ourselves. So, it's just a patchwork of things on top of each other. And the idea is to always listen to the feedback from people. And whenever you get an issue, you try to fix it. Make sure you don't have to face this issue again in the future.
Do you guys had a strategy to launch OctoPerf in a bigger scale? What was the initial thought process look like?
I would lie if I said we had this 5-year plan where we wanted to be there and we need to do this. It's really, we thought it was the right time to launch a SaaS solution. And it has a lot of advantages. You don't have to take care about updates, everything. But really quickly, we figured that we had to do it on premise as well. So another thing, you think you need to go in this direction, but actually most people will really want it on premise as well. And there's a lot of money there as well. So we ended up being lucky because Docker is very good at that. You can install it pretty much anywhere and it's really easy to deploy. But this is a strategy at the beginning was to, the company was started in the very early days by the developers. So they wanted to have something, entirely automated. People come, they evaluate, they purchase, which didn't work because it's a very technical business. I mean, people are used to tools with a lot of functionalities, and you don't just go on a website, say, oh, hey, this is cool, I purchase and test with it. You have to see if it can do the same things, and the purchasing process are complex. So really, we wanted something entirely automated. We wanted to keep the company small, which is something we still want to do because we want to control how it works, keep a nice mindset, and keep it efficient. But that's pretty much the only thing we were able to keep over the years, I think.
Okay. And when you thought about, okay, we want to grow the company and the team, what kind of characteristics are you looking for in the individual to hire?
I'd say mostly, it's so cliche. I was about to say mostly the mindset, but it really is, it's really true. I mean, because we need to have people we know we can trust and we can work with. So we've been mostly recruiting people we know from our network. Most of the time. And that's why we want to keep it small, because we don't want to have to deal with HR and things like that. We want a group of people that can work very well together. And one of the things my co-founders who take care of the development, they were really pissed with the quality of code in the companies they worked before. And I'm not saying this just for the previous company, but all of them. They did a lot of companies. It's always the same. It's like whenever you have a sales deadline to meet, well, you take the quality of the code, you smash it, and you just make sure you have the feature. And afterward, the developer is left with the remains. But we did something entirely opposite. We created something that is very clean, and we keep it clean all the time. clean it as we go. And this way, it's enjoyable for them to work in it. It's not like this huge bowl of spaghetti that you have to figure out, oh, I have this bug, so I have to follow along and find it. No, it's very easy to work with. And we try to do the same with every aspect. We try to use Salesforce as a CRM when we began. It's too complex. Maybe just need something where we can have the customer, we put a couple of reminders on it, and that's it. We don't want to, overthink the thing. We go for the most efficient solution if we can.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're very big on gathering feedback from customers. Can you walk us through in terms of how that actually works and how you prioritize feedback?
So that's one of the things. I cannot say it was really something we anticipated, but we started by adding a chat on the website. It's just like this. We thought, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. Let's try it out. Nowadays, everybody is trying to do it, and I think it's cool because you have a quick interaction with the user. The fact that it's a SaaS platform, you can ask them what they're doing. You can ask them if you can connect and check it out. And then you can tell them, oh, okay, yes, here you see you did that. No, you shouldn't do it like this. You should do it this way. And you can, in live, while they're using the product, you can give them advice. But we also did lots of meetings. Like we were on LinkedIn 4 years ago. We were asking people from the industry to, oh, hey, come look at the demo. Tell us what you think. And we did probably something like 400 or 500 of them over a year or two. Which is a lot of work, but it's really a good basis to get started. You can figure out the best pathway to have the features. And whenever we start with a new customer, we always do a demo, and we always do a proof of concept with them to see, okay, and we let them use it. So this way you can say, oh, okay, yes, see people try to click like on this button here, it's not clear. We ended up adding so many things to the product, quality of life features, just because we work with customers on this proof of concept and we let them use the product. Okay. Like we had an example is we had a search window, and we figured, well, when you close a search window, it's going to launch a search. It's easy, right? But people were confused because for them, closing the window, it's not launching the search. So we had to add the search button on the search window, just because people got confused if they had to click on close the window. But the search button really is a close button. It's exactly the same. So these are the kind of thing you cannot always think about when you're designing the product.
And for example, you have been in the industry with OctoPerf for a couple of years now, and when there are customers approaching you saying, oh, okay, it would be nice to have X or Y feature on top of this, how do you prioritize those kind of things?
That's a very good question. It's always a bit difficult because some people, people will have different needs. And there are usually, you obviously have exceptions, but they are usually thinking well when they ask for these kind of things. The first thing we see is it going to harm anything else? Like if everybody else has to do one more click for this guy to get his feature, it's going to be no at first, because it would complexify the path for everybody else. Then we try to figure out if we could have it in a different way to do it. Most of the feature we end up implementing, people have asked for similar things, but we implemented them in a different way. Like, okay, what you're asking makes sense, but if we do it this way, it will just make the life of everybody more complex. So what we can do is we can add an assistant, a wizard you can follow that will do it for you, or we can add it as a side feature, or we try to find first workarounds. A lot of when you're a small company, a lot of the new features go this way. We find a workaround, we document it very well, we help people put it in place, and when we see that a lot of people start using it, we're like, okay, yeah, now it has to become a feature of some sort because it's really something that's getting used. But it's a difficult decision because people always have a good reason for asking features, and it's hard to tell them just, no, what you're asking doesn't make sense. It's more like, okay, I get why you're asking it, but it may not fit in the product, but let's try to find a way to do it together.
Okay. Because Octopus, it is tackling performance testing.
Mhm.
And for the few people that don't know what performance testing is, can you give a bit of background of what that is and why is that important?
Yeah, sure. So the idea is to put demand on the system and monitor it. But
Mhm.
usually the first mistake is to think it's just about generating load to servers, but you actually have to monitor them to see what's happening at the same time.
Mhm.
We take care of the generating load, and we also have a monitoring part in OctoPerf, but mostly people use it to generate the load to their website. And the idea is to use that as an opportunity to see what's going to happen when you have more people on your website, like anticipate the big sale event. Like you have monitoring solution like big APM, the big like Dynatrace, App Dynamics, and the other. They will tell you what's going on day to day on your platform, if someone has a bad experience and blah, blah, blah. But you don't know what's going to happen on Black Friday, for instance, unless you've had one, but it's pretty too late to fix the problem if you had any.
Mhm.
So the idea is to, anticipate, see what's going on, and make sure next time you're ready. So we
Nice.
got a lot of customers these last months or last year because a lot of online services are getting swarmed
Mhm.
by people because of the context.
I know with the Octopus, there is a process that you're aiming for, and which is simplifying the load testing for the
Mhm.
companies. Can you give a bit of introduction of how are you doing that?
Yes, so that was also, to be fair, that was also the point of a Neoload and Neotis company we worked in before,
Mhm.
but we wanted to take that one step further because the problem is their tool was a fork of Jmeter, which became proprietary.
Mhm.
Jmeter is open source, but once forked, they kept it proprietary. We wanted to have something more open, like we use Jmeter in the background, we use open source, and you can plug open source or exit with open source results or things like that. But we want to get rid of all the constraints around it, like scaling machine in the cloud is not so easy as you'd think. Aggregating the results, it can also be complex, and even the UI is, well, it's what it is, but it could be a bit better. That's why we've tried to provide something around it.
Mhm.
So we really want people that start with OctoPerf to be able to forget it is Jmeter, unless maybe they want to export things in there but interact with it, but they can just run their tests using OctoPerf without knowing its open source solution behind it.
Okay. And let's say, for example, there is a person that doesn't have an idea about JMeter of
Mhm.
how to write scripts. Can you walk us through of how that person creates a script and be able to execute on Octopus?
Yeah, so basically, if you wanted to create a new script in OctoPerf, you can just use your browser. You open the DevTools. In the DevTools, you'll see the request being captured from your website. You export that, put it in OctoPerf. You might want to rework it a bit. It depends. Like if you
Mhm.
have sessions, people logging in, you may want to put a list of login and password and iterate on that. You can actually even go all the way to writing scripts that will create advanced behaviors. And
Mhm.
once you've done that, you just go to the runtime, say how many concurrent users you want to launch, from where, and we'll start the cloud agents. We'll aggregate it in a live report for you, and you can see all of that happening on screen.
Amazing. Okay. So, in terms of running the scripts, are there any
Mhm.
limitations of how many concurrent users you can execute or the locations?
Well, location-wise, it's mostly AWS and Azure, but if you look at
Mhm.
the map, it covers a lot of locations around the world, so
Mhm.
it's not really limited. But you can install your own locations, so
Mhm.
doesn't
Okay.
matter. You can test from your on-premise location if you want. You can even
Mhm.
install your own OctoPerf server entirely on premises. That's
Mhm.
what some of our customers do. Now, in terms of number of virtual users, it's not really limited either. It's more a question of how many users or how much load your application can handle. We've
Mhm.
tested up to 200,000, which I guess was 400 or 500 servers started to do the load test. But we could do much more. It's really just a question of the application you want to test. Honestly, except maybe Facebook levels of load, you probably don't need as much. But we get a request from time to time for a
Mhm.
test for 1 million.
Mhm.
It usually doesn't happen. So for
So
now,
1 million users, that was the maximum amount of users at this point that you got
that's
requested.
yeah, requested, yeah, but we've had weird requests. No, the in practice, what we've done is 200,000 users, and we've
Mhm.
done another which was less, but it ended up doing 200,000 requests per second.
Mhm.
We had
Wow.
something like I think it's 4 trillion requests sent
Wow.
over the course of the test, something like that. I'd have to find it back, but yeah,
Mhm.
a huge thing. Thanks Elasticsearch for aggregating all this.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
And so let's say we have a run this test.
Mhm.
How easy is to read the reports once the tests are finished?
So we take care of making we've created a reporting engine that
Mhm.
that will work the same way whatever the size of the test. The idea is that will automatically aggregate the metrics. If you've launched a very long test, you will get less metric displayed.
Mhm.
If it's a short test, we'll take metrics every 5 seconds. So it's usually not noticeable.
Mhm.
And then it's entirely configurable. So you can interact in your web browser, pick the metric you want to see, use filters, and really configure exactly what you want to see. You can add or remove things from the report, and you can save it as a template. So it's
Mhm.
really, really easy to create your own layout and share it with other people. And then at the end, export it as a PDF so that you can share it around.
Mhm.
But the perk of being a web-based tool in that it's all happening in a browser, it's that you can share the address of your result with other people. So
Mhm.
you can have 3, 4, 5, 10 people looking at the same report at the same time.
And so in these scenarios where people are executing multiple users against the environment,
Mhm,
and they have issues where the script just fails,
mhm.
how are you handling the errors?
So we will always report the few first errors. What we do is every time there's we look at the couple at the couple address and response code,
Mhm.
and every time we get a different one, we store the two first ones. So this way, if you get I don't know, a 500 error code on
Mhm.
your home page, well, then you will have it. You can look at the response, see what you have in there, and analyze.
Mhm.
And if you get, I don't know, 404 later, you will also get it. So this way you can have both and see, oh, okay, after a while, it's a CDN that stopped working, whereas at the beginning it was something else.
Mhm.
So we store all these so that people can work on it, because there's nothing more frustrating than launching a test, seeing a bunch of errors, and well, you don't know where to look to find them. So, and yeah, you have to crawl through your logs on the web servers to see what's going on. It's complicated. So what we do is we'll store request and response whenever there's an error.
Mhm.
And if it's something related to the agent, like out of CPU or thing like that, you will have an alert. It will prompt pop on the screen, and you'll have a message saying you what's going on. And our documentation will complete it by giving you the long explanation of what can happen at this stage.
Mhm.
So it's a
Okay.
mix of all these things, really.
Okay. And how reliable is the data that you're getting back from those tests that you have executed?
That, that's a very good question. We've had a lot of customers doubt the data we have, which is always good, because at least we have to look into it and make sure it's still good.
Mhm.
First thing is we use Jmeter, so we know it's secure, it's good, because, well, Jmeter makes sure it is.
Mhm.
But he can also do that as long as the load generator are not overloaded. So what we do is do automatic monitoring of every load generating machine that is executing,
Mhm.
and we'll warn if anything is wrong. In case there's a CPU alert, something like that, people will know right away. They can relaunch a test with different settings to compensate for that.
Mhm.
Other than that, what we do is whenever there's data, we store it in Jmeter locally, and every X second, we'll send it to our backend for aggregation. So we
Mhm.
store it in real time, and we just read what Jmeter is doing. So we know it's accurate because of that. I know other solutions around Jmeter, they choose a different path where they are actually writing the Jmeter result file on the disk, and
Mhm.
then they're reading this file, and then they're sending that. Problem is, by writing on the disk all the time, you get result that might be wrong. So we took a different approach, which was to let Jmeter leave and just take the result he gets when he gets them and send them. But it's a difficult subject because it's hard to find network issues when you're testing. It's hard to identify a network problem. We have a lot of customers that have network retransmission, TCP retransmission. It's very difficult to know where it comes from. Sometimes it's a DDoS protection, could be a network component overloaded. So we spend a lot of time pointing them in the right direction, and the chat really helps. Because they can quickly know, oh yeah, okay, you should look at this, or you should look in this direction. That's probably going to be the issue. And what we also do at the show of good faith is you can generate the results from Jmeter, the raw result file from Jmeter. So if you don't trust what you have in OctoPerf, you can also check it out. And so far, as of today, every time we've had to check the result we have on our side with what we have in Jmeter, it's always been the same.
And in terms of let's say we have executed 100 users or 1,000 users against an environment, have you or any part of the team actually compared with a customer? Or, okay, you've tested that you've executed with 1,000 users in this environment. When this feature goes to production, actually checking the data, how accurate that is.
We wouldn't have this problem because we just, the engine being Jmeter, what we build is around the engine. We don't change anything inside the engine. So it's always going to be the same than what Jmeter does. So what the differences we can have is, okay, yeah, well, we've released a new version and maybe we changed the monitoring of the load generators, and for a couple of days we didn't have the CPU monitoring because we messed something up. But other than that, we cannot have an impact on the metrics, and that's a good thing. For all the rest, we unit test everything. That's a religion internally. Everything's unit tested. If there's a support case where there's a bug, then there's a new unit test, or maybe several that will be born from this every time. So nowadays, when we release a new version, we actually have Jmeter projects, something like probably 10 or I don't know if it's 10 or 100 Jmeter project, probably closer to 100 Jmeter project that we will execute to see if they work as they used to work before the new code.
Is there any other differentiation that Octopus has compared to other tools in the market?
Well, I would say we are the only one that has a design engine where you can do so many things. Purely in terms of number of features on the design screen, you can do everything in OctoPerf, and you can handle 99% of the day-to-day testing situations, which is why some of our enterprise customers, like big banks and insurance companies and even governmental agencies, they like to purchase OctoPerf instead of legacy tools. Older tool that they used to have installed on their desktop. Well, OctoPerf does the same in a browser. So it's really, really efficient for that. Usually we have good feedback on the UI. So on top of it, I would say it's easy to use, but well, that's really, something you can get a feel of when you use the tool. So I obviously find it easy to use, but that's also what we're told by our customers. So I think it's true. And that's, really one area. The second is on terms of runtime. In a lot of load testing tools, you have either to install your load generator or you have to know how many load generators you will need to have to run your test. And that's where we also have an algorithm that will take care of everything. You just enter how many, where, and then we'll take care of starting the machine. When they're up and running, you just look at your results. Don't have to be technical, don't have to understand what a server is, what a Docker container is, doesn't matter. And then to finish, we have the reporting engine where here as well, I would say in our area, we are the tool which has the most possibility. And when I say that, what I mean is legacy solutions might have more possibilities in their heavy client, but you have to install the heavy client to be able to use that. Whereas OctoPerf, it's all in a browser.
Do you have any plans to make an app later on down the line?
I don't think so, honestly. I mean, it's already kind of an app in your browser, really. I mean,
Mhm.
we forget it, but browsers are like many operating systems
Mhm.
nowadays.
No,
You have,
in terms of
oh,
okay, you can actually execute those tests from your phone. So you
yeah.
have an app where you can just download and actually share the information.
Not yet, but why not?
Mhm.
Why not? Most of our customers are already are using the browser directly.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can use a browser from the mobile. It's not so convenient because there's a
Mhm.
lot of info on the screen, but it could be interesting. I think it may pose security issues. We'd have to figure out that
Mhm.
because there can be some data you don't want to be
Mhm.
shared over a mobile
Yeah.
device. But I mean, why not? Could be an idea. Yeah, might need to discuss that later.
And let's say when you are pitching this product to other
Mm,
companies that are in the market to look for a new load testing
mm,
tool, and you come across the engineering team saying, "Oh, okay, we
mm.
can build our home." What would you tell them of why you should use OctoPerf instead of building a home?
Yeah, I've written half a blog post about that, and I can't manage to finish it. But one of these days I'll have to about all the ideas I have around this subject.
Mhm.
We've come across a lot of people saying that. What they end up doing most of the time, or at least when I had the occasion to check it out, what they end up doing is launching cloud instances to run Jmeters
Mhm.
in the cloud. Yeah, that part is not so complex when you think about it. You can just launch a bunch of containers in any environment. What gets complex is to aggregate all the results,
Mhm.
especially because if you just plug an influx DB on Jmeter, yeah, it will log your result. But if two people launch a test at the same time, it will log both their results in the same place. So
Mhm.
now you have to do something different so that you know how to differentiate them. But that's only step one, because after that you may need to be able to show result over a period of time for one of these tests, but another test may have part of this period of time that recoups the same. And if you continue to go down the list of features they will need, what usually they end up doing is having something so complex to maintain that they just drop it and purchase another tool.
Mhm.
So it's, of course, I would say that because I want to sell my tool. But yeah,
Mhm.
if you really look at it, the time you will spend to develop your own, we've already done it.
Mhm.
Our pricing is one of the cheapest on the market,
Mhm.
and we want it to stay that way because this way it should be a no-brainer. You should look at it and say, oh, okay, yeah, it's not even 10% of the time of an engineer over a year that it's what it's going to cost me. So yeah, doesn't make sense to try to develop mine. Because these companies that do that, you often realize they were using legacy solution that cost them something like 300K. And
Mhm.
yeah, for 300K, I can get it that you want to put two people on there working on it for a couple of years.
Mhm.
It's cheaper in the end and you control what you will be doing. But we really want to put a price tag where it makes sense for everybody. It will be much cheaper than the time you spend developing it.
You also have the
Mm-hmm.
scenario where, okay, these two engineers, they've been working
Mm-hmm.
on this particular
Mm-hmm.
project, which is for load testing. And when they leave, what's going to happen with that project?
Yeah, yeah. You have that. You have you have There's always this guy that's so adores technology so much that he's going to want to do it anyway. He
Mhm.
will want to do it just for the sake of playing with new technology,
Mhm.
which is okay. But here, if there's a better alternative, cheaper alternative for your company, it may not be the best approach.
Mhm.
And we often have these kind of profiles. We often meet this kind of profile where people, they want to learn new things all the time, and that's great, really great. But sometimes doing this can be counterproductive for your company
Mhm.
because you end up having your company pay you to learn things when there are already better solutions, and you can spend your time learning useful thing,
Mhm.
maybe both for you
Yeah.
and your company. So we try to fit in there somewhere. Obviously, some companies choose to develop their own tool, and as long as they're okay with it, I'm also fine with it.
Mhm.
Not everybody has to use OctoPerf,
Mhm.
obviously, But it's sometimes difficult, yeah, to find the right balance.
Mhm. And in terms of having your customers, how it was at the start of the journey and how you went around to where you are now. Can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the tool was very simplistic in the first versions. I think that pretty much everything fit on one screen, while now we have menus and sub-menus. So obviously it changed a lot since then. At the beginning we were spending a lot of time around the fact that it's in the cloud. You just log in, you play around with a free version, and when you want to step up, you pay something. You pay a bit more. Whereas nowadays it's just more about, hey, you've got this legacy solution. Okay, so here we know what you usually want to do with it, and here how you can do it in OctoPerf.
Mhm.
Our biggest problem right now is to get known, have people know about us, and
Yeah.
then to convince them that it's not a scam.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, but a lot of our work is to say, no, it actually works. It's not just a demo where we do everything in its magic. You can also do the same yourself, and you'll see it's easy.
Mhm.
So it's changed really from trying to have a few customers on the SaaS solution to
Mhm.
now addressing big enterprise companies. And most of my work on new customers is to convince them that the security of the product is good now these days. It's more about how do we test and how to make sure there's no vulnerability
Mhm.
and this kind of thing.
And you have mentioned that Octopath is a Jmeter on steroids.
Yeah.
Can you give a bit of background of what does that mean?
Yeah. For a bit of background, we did a podcast with Joe Colantonio a while ago. I think, he has a QA guild or something like that. And he was the one to come up with this. So credit where credit's due, not our idea. But we've been using it a bit since then, on the website and other places. The idea is that Jmeter is a very good tool. It's very powerful, but it's frightening at first. I mean, if you right click and you see that you right click, you see you have 100 things you can add, and literally 100 things you can add in your script. It's difficult to get started with it. So we just take this, we use the powers of Jmeter, but we'll bring them to people so that they can, get started quickly. You can just import a recording you've done in your browser. You don't even have to know it's Jmeter really behind it. It's just that if you're interested, you can check it out. You can see the Jmeter result. You can go a bit further or reuse your existing Jmeter environment. But we really take care of everything that's complex. Hosting it, aggregating the report, and even a big part of the design.
Nice.
What is
Okay. Let's switch the gears towards people that want to build their own companies. So, because you have co-founded a very successful product in the tech industry, what would be your recommendation for the people that are just getting into it?
To not listen to me. No, really, you shouldn't. I mean, if somebody is successful and you just listen, if you just listen to people who are successful, you're basically, I think it's some kind of celebrity who said it, or even a philosopher as well, but you're basically listening to people who won the lottery and they're telling you buy lottery tickets, it works. Yeah, no. I mean, it works for some people, but that's probably not the best way to approach it. I think we were successful because we were a group of people with skills, and that's why, and that's how we started the company. And if you're a group of skilled people, whereas you're not very skilled or highly skilled, it's not really relevant. But if you know what you're doing, and typically we did because we had worked for 10 years in this industry, you will get somewhere. At least you will get somewhere. We were lucky that the next year after we launched, Jmeter was purchased. And then a year after, it was the companies that bought them was purchased again. We're lucky that this year Neotis got purchased. So, what can I say? We did a good product, probably, yes, but we also had other things around that worked very well. I think the core is that we were a group of people knowledgeable in our area, and that's how it all started.
Okay.
When we were starting the company, we met a lot of other people starting companies, and you have the two situations. You have the sales guy that has an idea, but he has no one to develop it. And you have the developers that have a product, but they have no one to sell it. And either way, it usually fails because they don't want to share equity with someone else, or they don't find the proper guy to sell the product or to develop it, or they just underpay, some student to to do what's missing in the company. I think the most important is to have a group of people with skill set that will cover everything you need in a company.
And what about when you have an idea that, okay, and you have a group of people that they are very adamant of, okay, we will go ahead and develop this, but they do not consider the iterations on top of that. Because I imagine when Octopus was initially built, like you mentioned, it was completely different products. And now the features that it has now has been 10x now. So what would you tell them?
Well, that the work is never finished, basically. It's not like in the software industry, you see that a lot. When a software company is successful, then a big company is going to purchase them, and they're going to, charge the customers and develop nothing else. That's usually something you see happening a lot. I don't think that's how you should approach it when you start a company. You shouldn't do this because you want to make big money out of selling something virtual. You're here to grow something, and this means you're constantly working on it. And very early on, we had a roadmap with so many items, and nowadays it's almost empty. We've probably covered most of what we wanted to do in the roadmap. We have time to think about other things. But yes, really, when we started, we knew there was a lot of work, and we still have. There's still a lot of things to do, but it's important to be able to prioritize, and feedback for that is important. Knowing your area, knowing what you're doing and how is important. And something that really pisses me off when I see new companies nowadays, that people are trying to solve non-problems. I mean, you have to solve a problem to someone, or your company will never work. So I think that's the tricky part, is to find what kind of problem you want to solve when you get started, and then you can build on it and solve a lot of other problems around it.
Okay, and now for those people that are looking for a tool to test, a load testing for their product, what would you tell them that why they should use OctoPerf?
Because it's the best. No, seriously though, I think the best thing is to try it out, honestly, because I will whatever I would say is probably not objective anyway. So you can try it out. There's a free version. You just subscribe. You can use it for how long as you want. It's just kind of freemium. You're limited to a quantity of test, or to a certain size of test you can do, but you can test all the features. You can even install your own server, test all the features. And that's usually when people try it out or contact us to get a demo, that's usually when they realize if it's a tool for them. And if it is, they usually like it a lot. So.
I hope this episode was valuable to you and that you were able to make the most out of this episode. If you have any questions for me or Guillaume, drop all your questions in the comment section below, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. In the meantime, have a beautiful day, and see you here until the next time. Take care.